Suzanne had a net worth of 8.06 times 10 to the eighth. Warren had a net worth of 2.03 times 10 to the eighth. So how much greater was the net worth of Suzanne than the net worth of Warren? So we're supposed to find out the difference between these two, right? To find out exactly how much greater it is. And for part A. So for part A, Suzanne is bigger, 8.06 times 10 to the eighth. And we need to subtract that by Warren. And then when we compute that, we'll have how much bigger they are. So look, they're both times 10 to the eighth, right? So when you subtract these two, you can go ahead and subtract these numbers because they're already in the same type of terms. They're already 10 to the eighth for powers. Okay, if that was like an x to the eighth and x to the eighth, then you could just subtract and your resulting answer would be x to the eighth. So all we have to do is 8.06 subtracted by 2.03, and that makes 6.03 if you want to use a calculator to check that. Okay, but I did 8 minus 2 makes 6, 0 minus 0 makes 0, 6 minus 3 makes 3. So that's part A. For part B, how many times greater was the net worth of Suzanne than Warren? So this one's different. It says how many times greater is this than another. So if you have 8 apples and your friend has 2 apples, and the question is how many times greater are your number of apples, then you just divide these two to figure out the number that you've got to multiply. You have 4 times as many apples as your friend over here. Okay, so same thing with this. Suzanne has 8.06 times 10 to the eighth apples, and Warren has 2.03 times 10 to the eighth. So if we wanted to find out how many times greater Suzanne is than Warren is, then divide the bigger one by the smaller one. And look, 10 to the eighth divided by 10 to the eighth, those bases are the same, so the power subtract to make 10 to the 0, or in other words, just 1. So these cancel out, right? So we just need to do 8.06 divided by 2.03. So that's 16.3. No, I did times. I'm sorry, that was way too big. So 3.97. I think it asks you to round, and I just cut off the instructions. Okay, so 3.97. If they want that in scientific notation, that's 3.97 times 10 to the 0. But I think they just want some sort of decimal answer. In my math lab, just be careful about what they're asking you to round it to.